Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's get everybody in the room. All right. I'm super excited today because I have one of my favorite people, Jordan Davis, is joining us today. And we're going to be talking about the 3 steps to raising your standards. And yet, before we jump into that, there's some exciting changes that are coming to Wellness Wednesday. We have been asking for feedback. We've been talking to some of the members of people who regularly attend this, and we're consistently looking to expand our message. How do we open up our message to more people? And part of the feedback that we received was the time that 9 Central is really challenging, especially for people out on the East Coast. So starting next week, we've got some exciting changes that are going to happen to Wellness Wednesday. We have a new time at 7:30 Central. So this should allow kind of right in the middle between the different time zones. It should allow more people to attend this. Now, rather than using Zoom, another adjustment that we're making is we've been exploring this pretty cool platform that's going to allow us to add some learning tools and features. And so the episodes that drop, the live streams that drop of Wellness Wednesday starting next week will not be through Zoom. They will be through our Facebook group. And so in order to watch the episode, you'll just need to log in. It will drop at 7:30 Central so that you can watch that live. Madison will put into the chat box the registration link to the Facebook group. If you are not already a member of that, go ahead and click on that. Join today. There's a few questions that you'll find in there, and then we'll get you approved. But we really believe that this new format and this new time will allow more people to attend and engage in the message that we are sharing. And so we're really excited about this. And October is kind of our beta test. So we're going to try this out and kind of see what the feedback is. We believe that feedback is the breakfast of champions. So go ahead and make that adjustment into your calendar. If for some reason 9 Central works perfectly for you and you're kind of bummed, then just keep the 9 Central in your time block and go into the Facebook group, and you can just watch it live, just like you would today or any other day that you've watched Wellness Wednesday at 9 Central. So we're really excited about this. I think it's going to add an element of fun. It's going to add more learning. It's going to give us the ability to do things that we've been wanting to do for a long time. And as always, if there is feedback that you think is critical for us to hear and is constructive, then please feel free to reach out to Madison at myfreedlife.com. We're always looking at making this a better, richer community of people that are inspired by our message. So as I mentioned earlier, we have one of my favorite people here today, and her name is Jordan Davis. So Jordan, why don't you first just tell the people in the audience, what is your role here at My Freed Life? What is it that you actually do here?
Good morning. I'm super excited to be with you guys this week. My role with My Freed Life is I am the director of training. And if you don't know, Freed actually has a pretty big world with some incredible people in his corner. I get to be the director of training for a piece of that world that is My Freed Life, what you guys probably most know him for if you're attending this Zoom is My Freed Life. And so that section of his world, I get the opportunity to teach the material that he's created, that we've kind of what we call riffed and come up with and cut through and figured out, does that fit? Does that not fit? Is that later? I get that opportunity to absorb and go out and teach that material to various groups, some of them within real estate, some of them outside of. Most notably, we've had a lot of experience with Keller Williams, but we're seeing that kind of trail outside of that. And so travel, train, and teach that material, as well as in the future, we have a vision that we would have additional presenters, and I'll get the opportunity to train them.
Yep. And so here's the way that I would think of Jordan if I were sitting in the crowd today. Jordan is the original guinea pig. She's the person that when
Is that what OG stands for?
OG, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you took that right out of my mouth. The original guinea pig, in the sense that she's the person that largely outside of myself that I tested the My Freed Life methodology on. And so she was a coaching client of mine for 6 years and was the person that we really kind of built this methodology around. And so, if you are a market center leader, if you're a team owner, if you're looking to add an element of My Freed Life to your world next year, she is the person that goes on the road and teaches this material. And I know that this is the period of time that people start putting together their training calendars, at least the big events. And if you or somebody you know wants to bring My Freed Life to your area, we have a big goal next year to travel to, but reach out to Madison and we will coordinate that. And Jordan will be your guide, and she is magnificent at it. So thank you for being here today, Jordan. We're going to be talking about standards. Now, before we get into that, there's a couple of quotes, a couple of ideas that I want to share with you about standards and why we ultimately picked this topic. Number one, there's a quote from one of my all-time favorite books. It sits right there on my shelf, and it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I love that book so much that I probably listen to it at least every other year. That book and Man's Search for Meaning are books that I attempt to go back and reread or re-listen to every other year. And one of the quotes from that book is he says, "You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fail at the level of your systems. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fail at the level of your systems." And, if we could just take that quote and improve it a little bit for today's conversation, what I want you to understand is that you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fail or fall to the level of your standards. And last night I was doing a little bit of research around standards, and I came across something that I thought was brilliant. It says that standards define the minimum level of quality or performance we expect of ourselves and others. Standards define the minimum level of quality or performance we expect from ourselves and others. So when you think about standards, think about what it is that you are willing to tolerate. And it shows up in every corner of your world. It shows up from how you take care of yourself, the standards that you have for your personal health and wellness, your relationships, the relationships that you have both personally and professionally, the work that you do. Your standards show up everywhere. And one of my great mentors, somebody that I've learned a lot from over the years, is Tony Robbins. And he said that if any time you want to make a change, the first thing you should look to is to raise your standards. And so Jordan and I are going to talk today about how you can do that and maybe some tactical things that you could put into play here so that you can raise your standards, so that you can ultimately rise to whatever level of your vision it is that you're after. So Jordan, here's the question that I have for you. Let's just imagine that you and I are walking down the hallway at your office, and I see you and I think to myself, I'm going to go ask her a question. She's somebody that's achieved a great level of success in her life. I'm going to go ask her a question. So I walk up to you and I say, "Hey, Jordan, I'm curious. I've heard that raising my standards is really important. And I'm wondering if you were going to break that down for me into 3 steps. What would be the 3 steps that you would encourage me to take to raise my standards?"
I love that question. I think the first thing that's necessary anytime you're looking to make a change in your life is to have clarity on why and clarity on what you want. What is your end goal? What is the reason you're making a change? Because anytime we make a change, right, we know that objects in motion tend to stay in motion. And anytime we enact on it with a force, there's going to be some friction, right? That's just science. And so that happens internally as well as we seek to make changes in our life. And we have to be really clear, in my opinion. The first step is to get clarity on what it is you're looking for. Brene Brown says, paint that done. Her team, that's a way that they say to her, you just spit out a big idea, give us more information on that. Actually, and I like the word paint, make it a painting for us. Tell us, vocalize what you see in your head. And so clarity around your values and even being able to visualize what you want your future, your preferred future to be. because the reality is when friction happens, you'll fall back to what your original standards were. So why is this your new standard? What are you looking to achieve? Why is that important to you? What will that do for you? Who do you see in your world when you raise this standard? Who do you see not in your world when you raise this standard? Those things are really important to define and get clear on. I don't know if you know this, but back when I was in high school, I actually had my motorcycle license. And I remember going through the classes that you had to take in order to get it. And when you're going through school, they tell you your tendency is to look at the ground because you're afraid of falling. But what you actually need to do is look at where you want to go. You need to be looking ahead. And the instructor would say, also, please don't look at me because you will actually run me over. You will go wherever you are looking to. So visualization and clarity as far as where you want to go is that important that it actually, without your conscious actions, drives you where you want to go. So being that clear on what is that preferred future, what do you see for yourself, and everybody at one point, Jordan Freed, you told me that I have a bias for action, and I don't disagree with that. But we tend to just jump into the doing and the changing and the implementing without sitting and taking 50% of the time that we're dedicating to a change to get clear on what we really want and what this would do for us. And I think that's where the real work happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one point that I would make, and Madison and I have had this conversation multiple times. It's, if you think about it, like, God created the world through a 3D printer. So just imagine that God sat up in the sky and had this amazing printer, this amazing piece of software that he or she meticulously designed the world, right, in this piece of software, and then printed the earth, the universe as you know it, into real time or into reality. And if God called you up and just said, hey, come on up, I'm going to let you use the software that I use to design the world, would you be able to sit down and put anything into that software that is really tangible? And the question really is, can you visualize the moment that the goal, the vision becomes real? Can you take yourself to the moment that the miracle occurs? That I think is very important, that you start with that level of clarity, right?
100%. My second would be practicing your no. So when you're really clear on what you want, it's all defined also on what you don't want and what you won't stand for. Like, Freed, you were talking about falling to the level of your standards, and your standards are really what you're willing to accept. If I run a team and I tell my team that they have to make 100 real estate connections a week, but consistently somebody is turning in 65, what is my standard if they stay on the team? Right? My
65.
standard is 65, right?
Yep.
So getting clear on your no and what you're willing to let go of in pursuit of that clear vision that you desire. And so for me, from a real estate standpoint, running a team, that may be a team member that I have to let go because they consistently refuse to meet standards, and get help for that. So that's like practicing your no. I will tell you, I struggle as a female raised to, I guess, make things appeasing, especially a female raised in the South, to say no. It's a big struggle for me. And so practicing your no has become really important to me. For example, hey, I have other priorities, and I'm afraid if I take this opportunity that you're offering, I would not be able to give it the full level of commitment that you need. And therefore, I think somebody else would be better off that's not as committed as I am. And so it's not rejection. It's not, and so practicing that no, practicing whether it's getting out of business with somebody, whether it's declining an opportunity, even if it's I've had sellers that don't want to lower the price to be competitive. They don't want open houses. They push back on showings. They refuse to clean their house, right? And so being able to decline something that you know is just going to take your time and energy and not help you reach your clear end goal. You get to a really powerful place when you get clear on that. And you are willing to say no to everything else. I heard a podcast. The podcast was All It Takes Is a Goal. And it was talking about saying no to the little things that you like to do so that you can say yes to the things you love to do more.
Mm, I love that. I love
And
that.
that's a practice, right?
Yeah.
Saying no and rejecting things is a practice that are not meant for you, especially in a time, especially like when you're coming up as a leader and you take every opportunity, right? Because it's just a great chance to showcase.
Yeah.
The third would be, staying accountable. Who's going to hold you accountable or what's going to hold you accountable and identifying that, whether that's a coach, Jordan, you and I coached for 6 years. And what we decided as a business plan, what we decided as how I would run my organization, you held me accountable to. And you reminded me when I started to make decisions that got off track of what we eventually were trying to get to. Seeking out resources and systems that help you achieve what you desire. That research goes into, past the visualization to implement what you desire, but staying accountable is a massive portion of that, of who's going to hold you accountable to those new standards to ensure that you're able to reach what it is that you desire to get out of this big change.
Yeah. And the thing about accountability too is that I believe that accountability fluctuates with the person. And if you really want to get into a healthy relationship with accountability, first understand that accountability is simply the process you use to keep your own promises. That's all it is. Accountability is the bridge. It's what allows your audio to consistently match your video. And no one is perfect at this, right? And yet you've got to figure out what accountability ultimately means to you. What does that word, how is it defined to you? And then also how does it work for you? Because there are some people, and I share this in my free life, that used to come to me and they say, I want you to hold my feet to the fire, I want you to punch me in the throat. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work. And anybody that does need to be treated that way, you need to spend some deep time and observation and examination of, why do I have to be abused in order to perform? That doesn't make sense. And so, what is the relationship that you ultimately need with accountability, such that accountability brings out your best? It allows you to print the best version of you into the real world. And never, ever lose sight of the fact that accountability is simply the tool, it's the process that we use to help you keep your own promises. And just like what we say in My Freed Life, my all-time favorite question, the question that I think is ultimately going to distill and boil your life down, is, how well are you leading yourself? On a scale of 0 to 10, how well are you leading yourself? And as a coach, my goal is to just move that number up. It's to consistently move that number up. And when you unpack that, like, what does it mean to lead myself well? It means that my audio and video match. It means that what I say and what I do are in alignment, or I am someone who is always fighting to remain in alignment with what I say and what I do. I keep my own promises. I'm working with this every probably quarter or so, because we're developing, and at some point we'll release a My Free Life journal, something that people will use in their day-to-day life. And so I do a lot of research on journals. And right now I'm in the middle of this 5-minute journal. And every day it has you write down your mindful affirmation. And my mindful affirmation every day has been, today I will do my best to keep my promises. And look, everybody, that's all you can do. That's all you can really control. So Jordan, those are really great. Those are really great insights. I wrote down that number one, get clarity and attachment to your why. Right. Number two, be very clear about what you're saying no to and what you're saying yes to. And then lastly, live the accountability cycle. Find the version of accountability that's going to work for you. Which, by the way, when Jordan and I first started working together, we only made it about 6 weeks before she left the conversation, and her husband and I did the talking because I was immature as a coach, and I didn't build rapport before I started to really kind of push on her, and it pushed her right out the door. And it took time for her to come back and for us to reestablish that relationship. So really great insights there, Jordan.
Curious what yours are.
So if you ask me the steps to raising your standards,
Yeah. What are your three?
um, number one would be, and I know that this is cliche, but who are you hanging out with? If you want to raise your standards, you need to raise the standards of your peer group. And I don't mean that you have to evict all your friends. That's not what I mean. But understand this: if you hang out with four smokers, you're going to be the fifth. If you hang out with four people who eat poorly, you're going to be the fifth. And you smell like the dogs that you run with. And as cliche as it sounds, and by the way, cliches are just truths that we're tired of hearing. It doesn't make them less true, though.
For sure.
Um, but but you've got to engineer your peer group, and I've seen you do this through the Boss Babes group, uh, putting and selecting the right people around you, and finding those. I mean, James Clear talks about this in the book, but he says simply find the people that are already living your dream and figure out a way to get in relationship with them. And by the
Mm,
way, relationship doesn't mean, or doesn't have to mean, that you're just hanging out with them, you're eating Sunday dinner at their house. A relationship might simply mean that you're listening to their podcasts, you're reading their books, you have a relationship with the philosophy that they're putting into the world. It doesn't have to mean an actual relationship. So that'd be my first one. Um, the second one,
I love,
um,
if I can add to that, like,
sure.
like additionally, who should I not be hanging out with? Like
Yeah.
who can I love? Ben Kinney, who's a partner of mine, he talks about like he couldn't get out of a relationship with his mom. It was his mom, right? But she was an alcoholic. And so he noticed that by like taking her phone call after 2 p.m., she was already like gone for the day. And so he had to put some boundaries around that relationship. So there's people we can get out of a relationship with, but also people we can maybe put some boundaries that, are in our lives permanently, and we want to respect that relationship.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I mean, who do you need to get out of relationship with too is a powerful question.
Yeah, or put some serious bumpers, up. Yeah, for sure. The second one, Jordan, that I would probably say, and this is an odd question to ask people, but what is your model for God? And what I mean by that, and I'm not a religious person, and you know this about me. In fact, you and I share a favorite quote: religion is for people who are afraid of going to hell. Spirituality is for people who've already been there. And so when I say what's your model for God, what I really mean is, where do you put your faith and trust? Regardless of what you believe, we were designed by something. The intricacies of the universe are just two in alignment, at least in my opinion. This is my opinion, take it or leave it. To not have given credit to some type of a designer. And I put this actually in the Facebook group, I don't know, the other day, about Steve Jobs. And Madison, if you'll go do me a favor, go grab the Stanford commencement speech that Steve Jobs did. I want to say it was like '05 to 2010. It's 12 minutes. Do yourself a favor and watch this. But one of the quotes that he shares, and I'll butcher this a little bit, is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And what he means by that is that you have to have faith that things will work out. And look, this is not like something I have mastered over the last few weeks, especially Laura Hyatt, she will attest to this, has had to send me many, many, many text messages about me needing to be more loyal to the unseen, or in another word, that I need to trust and let go. And so I'm not sitting up on my high horse here saying, just jump. It's so easy, because it's not. You have to let go. But what is your model for God? Because the people that I find that have a relationship with the designer, this force that is intelligent in all living things, they live more fun, more fulfilling lives than those, at least in my experience, that don't have faith in something bigger than themselves. So, what is your model for God? Is probably the second thing as it relates to raising your standards. And then lastly, I'm always going to go back to best advice, best life, right? I think that we all intend to be examples, not warnings to people, and especially the people that we love. And there was a quote that somebody shared with me, and it's one of those quotes that I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but it is something that does resonate within me. And that is that people will forget 100% of what you say and remember 100% of what you do. And so that activity, or that philosophy of best advice, best life, is simply looking at circumstance in life, moments in time, and asking yourself, how would I coach a loved one here? What advice would I give to them? What would I tell them to do? And then just having the courage to live that advice. Now, that's hard to do if you don't have faith, right? But having the courage in that moment to mind the wisdom of your head and your heart, because when I think about it through the lens of like my children, I love them like nothing else. It's unconditional. And if I will simply align my life to the advice that I would give to them if they found themselves in the same circumstance, I just don't think that I can do any better than that. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with Gary Keller recently, and he said, I just don't understand people who don't want to do their best. Just go out there and do your best. And when I think about it, if I'm living through the best advice, best life philosophy through that formula, that's just the best I can do. And I'm okay with that. That is enough as far as whatever the context is. So Jordan, there's my answer to your question. Those three things: your peer group, what is your model for God, and then best advice, best life would be the three things that I would give to somebody who wants to raise their standards.
I think we talk about faith and, do you have faith and are you going to go by faith, and really understanding that faith and fear are in competition. And I think one of the things that you and I have discussed is part of, the pushback from religion is that there's so much fear to force you into having faith, right? And the two really can't coexist.
Yep.
Um, and
Yeah.
you said, and both are artificial, right? But
They're
both
both
don't
made
actually
up.
exist.
Yeah, you've made them up. You're one of the things that a previous mentor of mine used to say is that reality is a delusion. Pick a good
For
one.
sure. For sure. And
So
so
you're
go ahead.
no, I'm listening.
When it comes to, are you just going to have faith with it? Which I think that's like thrown around a lot, but it's like, what if I don't know how to like choose faith? What if I say, this is my commitment, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to get out of fear? In My Free Life, we talk about the 3 A's to change. The first
Mhm.
is awareness, the second is accountability, and then the third is action. So when you come to the fork in the road of fear and faith, it's consistently stopping, becoming aware that you're here, how you got here, and then choosing the faith route consistently over and over again, such that it becomes a practice, or you're conditioned to, when you get to the fork in the road of choices, that you're choosing faith.
Yeah. Yeah, and where I'm always going to go on that, Jordan, is the serenity prayer. And if you don't know what the serenity prayer is, it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And you're right. There's a certain amount of acceptance that we have to make. And I think that having faith, as you mentioned, is simply the conscious decision to relinquish control of anything that I actually don't control. That I am going to be a person who is dead clear on what they control and pay no mind to what I can't.
Yeah.
So good stuff here. Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. As I mentioned, next week we have a new time, 7:30 Central, a live stream episode of Wellness Wednesday will drop. We are changing up the format as well, where we're bringing on more guests. And next month, well, I guess that will be October. Yeah, next month is October. Our new theme of the month is going to be health. And so we're going to have some great guests for you. Make sure, if you haven't already, to join our Facebook group. The link is in the chat box, and you should be there anyway, because that's probably the best place that we use, or the best platform we use to engage with our community. But Jordan, thank you for being here
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you for pouring into all of us. I know we're all better for it. All right,
Awesome.